All right. Hey, everybody. How's it going? So, we are here with Mr. Ostap. I'm not sure why. I'm in two places on the screen here. I don't know why, but that's okay. We were having some technical difficulties earlier. So, I met Ostap in Peru in, I believe it was 2019, and we have kept in contact ever since. And as this situation developed with Russia and Ukraine, I wanted to have him on to ask him, just as an American, what sort of, not like the news is saying or the propaganda from Russia or whatever is saying, but what a regular Ukrainian person thinks and feels about this situation. So, welcome, Ostap. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you for inviting me.
yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate your time. So Ostap gave me some homework, and I only did part of it.
Okay.
Ostap, what was the name of the article that you told me to read that I only read part of?
Oh, I don't
Flight,
really remember. It was
flight.
something about Ukraine and what Putin said, I
Well, there
think,
was one. It was
2 days ago.
it was flight to freedom.
Okay, yeah, it might be. Yeah, it might be.
Yeah. So it
Maybe that
was
one.
it was basically an article about um, this sort of historical situation with Ukraine and Russia. So Ukraine was part of the USSR, part of the Soviet Union up until the Soviet Union fell, which I believe
Right.
was it fell in
1991.
1991.
91.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how was Ukraine? So, for example, before the Russian Revolution, was Ukraine part of Russia or was it its own?
Yeah, so we need to look back at. Um, so I'll slightly touch this part, and then I'll slightly touch the part that Putin was saying 2 days ago
Sure.
when he signed a contract that Donbass and Lugansk, they are now countries and they are like under Russia's
Yeah.
agreement and they're
Ridiculous.
protected by Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I'll start and I'll just make this a whole story. So we start from 9th century when the Kievan Rus was appeared, was one of the biggest I wouldn't say empire kingdoms
Mm-hmm.
in Europe at that time,
Right.
and with the city Kiev, and it's supported by facts, by historical facts.
Sure.
You can search it, you can read it. And then what happened? Mongols came, and then Mongols basically all Kievan Rus. It was just parts of it left, and then what happened was so the guys who were living where the St. Petersburg is now, they
Mm-hmm.
came from there, and they became, and then it became a Moscovia. But it all happened from tribes. What we believe they came from that northern part, and then well, century after century, they started to grab territories, and then eventually we have a Russian Empire
Mm-hmm.
and a part of Ukraine, which is central and eastern part. They are belonging to Russian Empire, and then the western part, where the Carpathian Mountains are, they were belonging to Poland that
Okay.
time.
Gotcha.
Okay, and then from this start, 1917, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
a revolution,
Yep.
and then USSR, Bolsheviki, right?
Yep.
That's how it's in English, I guess.
Yeah, the
They
Bolsheviks. Yep.
Bolsheviks, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they come to power, and what they basically do, they kill all the ethnicity of all the nations they have inside the country.
Yeah.
And Ukraine was constantly trying to be independent because
Mm-hmm.
we had our own culture,
Sure.
and during the Russian Empire as well.
So
So
so Ukraine
yeah,
has always had its own unique language that is not
yeah,
Russian. It's always had its own culture that is not Russian, nor is it Polish or anything else. Um, so Ukraine has the Ukrainian people, despite being under different empires or under the Mongols, have always had their own distinct language and culture.
yeah, yeah. That's totally true. And our culture, if we look back, if we look back at what our culture combines from, it combines from uh, Slavic tribes.
Yep.
Some of them are Tripilia. It's one of the oldest tribes in Europe or
Mm-hmm.
even in the world, and they lived actually in the middle, in the central Ukraine. But why Russian language and Ukrainian language are so similar?
Mm-hmm.
So what happened is when Kievan Rus, it's one territory,
Yeah.
right? And then when it started to become smaller regions, um, we had our own language, but then the northern regions they had their own language too, and it get mixed up with other languages there.
Sure.
So when they came, they started to say that you don't have your own language,
Right.
and what happened over time, it's Russian, and because of communists, it's 60 years. So along those 60 years, all people who were writing in Ukrainian or speaking Ukrainian, there was even a legal thing that if you're speaking Ukrainian, you are gonna get killed, and it was for a couple of years there in Russian
Wow.
Empire and Bolshevik USSR as well. But
Right.
nobody's talking about this. So yeah, we have our own language and our own culture. That's 100%.
Right. That extends far back into history. And
Yeah,
we won't go into the whole history of Ukraine. I know
yeah, for sure.
Ostap
We
has
can
a
do.
soccer game he needs to go to here in a little bit. Um,
No,
and
it's fine.
but
We can stay still for half an hour. It's good.
okay, so then I'll just ask real quickly the last piece of history that I would like to touch on that I don't, or the last piece of sort
Yeah.
of older history. I don't know anything about the Crimean War except the name and that it was
Okay.
sometime in the 1800s. Can you just quickly tell me what happened during the Crimean War?
Crimean War
Was
in 1800s.
I believe so. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Was there not a
Okay.
was there not has Crimea, which is Crimea is a little, if I'm not mistaken, a little island
Right.
or a
Right.
peninsula. Has
Right.
this is not this has been contested by different, it's been fought over for quite some time, right?
Interesting. Okay. So what happened? So there is Turkey, right? So we need to trace back a little bit
Sure.
older.
Yep.
As far as I know, there is Turkey,
Hmm.
and they have the Turkish people live there, right?
Yep.
Then there is Ukraine. Ukrainians live there,
Yep.
and then there is Crimea, and there is Tatars live there. Crimea Tatars.
Okay.
It's their ethnicity. They're different people from everybody else.
Sure.
It's their peninsula, right?
Yep.
So what happened was Turkey. Uh, so this peninsula was going back and forth, but if I'm not mistaken, Turkey was controlling that part and slightly up
Yeah.
in 16th century. It's when they were attacking Ukrainian fields, Ukrainian territories, and we were trying to hit back with Cossacks.
Okay.
That's one of the moments of the history, right? And then what happened when Russia came, Russian Empire? They were fighting against Turkey, and I believe they won this war. And there were
Okay.
a couple of them, and they took the Crimea Peninsula
Yeah.
back. Not back, but they took it. They actually grabbed it, right?
Sure.
So it wasn't theirs.
Right.
And
And at that time
after some,
they had
yeah,
taken, at that time they had basically taken all of Ukraine and the Crimean Peninsula into the USSR.
so that was Russian Empire.
Russian
So
Empire
that's when
before.
Russian Empire took
Gotcha.
it. So it was exactly when you said it was. I think it was 19th century.
Yep.
So 1800 something,
Yep.
or even earlier. Maybe it was 18th century. Yeah.
Okay.
And then it stayed with Russian Empire, and then USSR came, and then during the USSR, um, I think it was Gorbachev
Hmm.
who gifted the peninsula island to Ukraine. But why he gave it? It's because um, so there were Crimean Tatarian people living there,
Hmm.
and USSR was constantly killing them. So there are cases of just taking those people and bring them back to I don't know, to Kazakhstan, so
Yeah.
they would be there because they didn't want those. And those people were like different from everybody else. They were not white. They were like, in USSR you need to be all the same,
Sure.
but they were different. So they were trying to bring them apart. And then Gorbachev thought, oh well, this peninsula, it's there near Ukraine. We cannot give them food. Like it's connected to Ukraine,
Yeah.
so I'll just give it to them. Let them do their thing.
Right.
So he gave it to us,
Okay.
and then now Russia claims that the Crimea was always theirs.
Yeah,
So that's the story behind it, and
like
why
they do.
things
Yeah.
happen.
Okay, so
Yeah,
now we'll touch on more modern things. So in, I believe it was
yeah,
2014, Russia
yeah.
decided that they were going to take over Crimea, claiming it was theirs or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And they basically invaded Crimea, and
Hmm.
through military force. I mean, I believe. Do you have any idea how many people died in this recent conflict in 2014?
Actually, I don't know how many people died.
It was
Uh,
hundreds, but not thousands.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Um, but there is a story behind it as well. So when USSR was like you had to go to be you have when you were living in USSR and you were a male,
Hmm.
your duty was to go to become a soldier,
Yep.
and everyone who went through World War I or World War II, they were given them houses in Crimea. So
Okay.
everyone who was a soldier, they become to live in Crimea.
Yeah.
That's why there was a Russian. So that's why when they came, Russians came. A lot of people there, they were still in USSR. So all those generals, all those people who were who had money, all they were living in Crimea,
So
because all the Tatarian people, all the Crimea Tatarians, they were just forget about them, right? So when Russia came, there was not enough of how
opposition.
to say it, yeah, opposition,
Uh huh.
right? Because everyone who was Crimea Tatarian, he was living in the
They
mountains
were
or
gone.
somewhere in the middle,
Yeah.
and there were just Russian troops, and like everyone was there. That's why it happened so quick. So we cannot even react. So we
Gotcha.
couldn't get our forces to go to Crimea all the way from Kiev or wherever they were,
Yeah.
right? So that's why it happened so quick. And
So basically,
yeah,
Russia has created a process over many years where they have
yeah,
removed the native people from Crimea and replaced them with their loyal soldiers and sort of
exactly,
loyal Russians. And so that way they can have the appearance that people in these places actually want to be part of Russia, when
exactly.
really they've been purposely doing this for decades.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and there are still a lot of Ukrainians in Crimea, but it just happened so quick that
sure.
Ukraine, and there was revolution here, so nobody was thinking about Crimea somewhere there, and then it just hit us in a couple of months, and yeah, the government, it's in Ukraine was always not that stable, right? So
Sure.
so we couldn't just react, but also it was done for purpose for sure, because if you look at the Crimea, it's all the sea there. There are two seas there actually, so
Yes.
they control basically Turkey. They can see also, like they have this Balkan view. So it's a good strategic position.
Right.
So that's why it was well thought before. Yeah,
Right. They've been planning this and making this process for quite some time. Um,
maybe not this process, but yeah, some
the
strategic points they were keeping in mind. Yeah,
right. Um, so that was in 2014 that Russia moved into Crimea, and then
yeah.
the international community, talked about it a little bit, but I mean it was on the news and stuff, but I'm not sure the international community did very much. We may have put some sanctions on Russia, um, but I don't see that we did
Hmm.
anything that was effective, or Russia wouldn't be doing what it is now. So that brings us to where we are today. So it
Hmm.
was what, about a couple months ago, starting Russia began, or a month ago, Russia began moving troops close to the Ukrainian border.
Yeah,
Yep, which is the eastern border of Ukraine and the western border of Russia.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
That's correct.
And I believe the Russians said it was like a training exercise or something, or
So
some.
well, it started from Crimea,
Yeah.
and then they started to move their forces to Donetsk and Lugansk ever since, and then well, they gathered the control. They actually they invaded the territory, but they were saying, oh, it's terrorists, it's not us.
Uh huh.
But they actually invaded the territory of Lugansk and Donetsk, So I have friends who are from there. They heard those missiles coming, and they were just riding cars just not to get hit from those missiles.
Wow.
So that's actually happened, and Russia claims that it's terrorists that
Sure.
did that. But
Yeah.
we know
Russian.
the example with the plane from Netherlands that was going that way, and then it got hit, so 700 people died. So it was all and it's proved actually.
Sure.
Like there were a lot of commissions that proved that actually. So the conflict was from 2014, so it's still going on. So
Yeah.
it's not an anti-terroristic or like whatever it's called.
No.
It's actually a war
Yeah.
that is going for 7 years already.
Right.
It's a war that's going for 7 years, and um, well, in Ukraine, people are like, "Oh, why international community is not helping us?" And
Yeah.
like they're scared and they really want like some support. But
Sure.
my personal belief is um, it's hard. I understand that international like other countries they don't want to be involved in this conflict if they don't have any strategic things. It's just they think they support on wars, but they don't really need to say like to go forward and help us.
Yeah.
But the only point I'm making here is like if we look through the history, if we look how things were going with First World War and Second World War, you know, every dictator he wants a little small win to show his to show everyone that he is powerful,
Yeah.
to bring fucked up shit from his country to
Yeah.
some other country to show everybody that look, Ukrainians are fucked up, and in my country it's all good.
Right.
That's what Putin is doing, right?
Sure.
But with every this little win,
Little
he'll
more.
need one more and one more
Uh-huh.
and one more. So
Yeah.
that was with Nazis. That's what happened with Poland.
Sure.
A little war, and then we'll go forward. So
Yeah.
my only thing is, if we are first and he manages somehow to capture Ukraine, so I don't know, Poland gonna be second,
Yeah. It'll be
or someone else. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, I am. I sort of understand both sides of the issue. With like, I think Ukraine should be protected, but then
Mm-hmm.
on the other side, I don't want to see just the United States spend all of our money,
Of course.
our people's lives. I really think, and I don't want World War III to start, obviously, but I really, but Putin and Russia should not be allowed to take Ukraine. And I really think the international community, I think the best outcome or the best solution would be to give Ukraine emergency admission into NATO. And
Mm-hmm.
so that say, all right, Ukraine is part of NATO now. They've already taken Crimea, so I'm not sure what you would do with that. Maybe just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's complicated,
Yeah. We need it.
but if Ukraine was part of NATO, then all of these nations, France, Germany, Japan, I believe is part of NATO. Every single country that's part of NATO, if Russia invaded, would be obligated to go and fight Russia, and then it would basically be
Yeah.
the entire world um, protecting Ukraine. So I understand that part of this may be because Ukraine was thinking about becoming part of NATO, and Putin really doesn't want. Um,
Right.
yeah,
Right. So there is ideology behind it, and I understand why Putin is not willing uh, to have Ukraine near his side. That is going to NATO. That is developing. So Russia is, if you can think of Russia right now, and it's great. It's a great comparison to empire.
hmm
So Russia is an empire. It has more than 20 different ethnicities,
yeah,
different languages inside it.
sure,
So what empires do, what Roman empires do, what any empire does, it has one emperor, right? And that emperor holds the power. And in order to get from the things that are bad in his country, he needs to take war so people focus on different things
yeah,
that are beyond where they live.
yeah,
30% of Russians they don't have warm toilet.
yeah.
30%. It's like 30 million people or even more.
Wait,
So
they don't have what?
warm toilet.
War.
They go on the street.
They don't have running water. They don't have a
Yeah,
flushing
well, running water. Yeah,
flushing
yeah,
toilet. Yep, yep.
flushing toilet.
I
Yeah,
got you.
warm toilet. Sorry. Yeah.
Right, that's okay.
Warm is just, it's just always warm here.
Yeah,
And
no worries.
and yeah,
Yeah. So
and
they want to create an outside enemy to
so
shift the focus.
not only that, because Ukraine and Russia, they were like this together. So I have my not brother, but I have an uncle
Mhm.
living in Russia.
Yep.
Someone else too. So we are interconnected, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
when one country is growing rapidly right away,
Yeah.
others see in Russia that, oh, our country is fucked up, and that's what Putin is afraid most of all. He's afraid to lose power. So in order
Yeah.
not to lose power, he actually attacks.
Right.
That's what animals do all the time. It's
Yep.
natural instinct.
Right.
So and yeah, he wants Ukraine not to be in NATO, not to be in European Union,
Yep.
because if we are, it shows Kazakhstan, White Russia, who else is Russia, and other countries that follow Russia.
Sure.
That, okay, our and this is crucial moment right now, because this is very crucial moment. It's the only hope that Putin has, not to give us back, and because of that, I think international like community, they need to think about it, because if they give up, then they lose not only Ukraine, they lose actually a couple of more countries.
Right. So
For what? For centuries.
yeah.
And yeah, I don't
So
know what's happened next.
this is the tipping point where places like Ukraine and Belarus will either go towards Europe and NATO and become more like Western democracies, or they will tip back towards Russia and they will become more like, Russian style communist dictatorships or whatever. So this is the moment in history where they choose their path.
Well, it all depends on people. So in White Russia, in Ukraine, we were just lucky in Ukraine that things turned out that way, that we happened to come together and fight this dictatorship of our previous president, right?
Sure.
So there was actually a revolution,
Right.
and we were lucky to move it forward. And then when Putin saw it, he was thinking, okay, revolution. Russians think about revolution, and everybody else too. And if revolution, and then happy life, and then everybody's living good, and then everybody's Ukraine is starting to flourish, then he thinks, okay, revolution at my place as well,
Right.
in a couple of years.
It'll
And
happen in Russia as well, right? So now I just want to ask you a couple more questions, and then I know you have to go to your
yeah,
soccer game soon. But so what is just really quickly, what is the most recent news in the last couple days? Has Russia moved troops across the border, or?
so yeah, I was at the conference. It's called Politics of Nature. It was held by Danish philosophers
Mhm.
who actually created this game, and it was 1 week ago,
Mhm.
and they were forced to go back to Denmark because there was an emergency,
Sure.
right? So that Russia is gonna attack, and then I believe that USA did the same thing. They held people
Yeah.
back, and everybody else as well.
Yeah.
So there are 2 points. One is it's really happening, so they are going forward to invade.
Yeah.
What? Well, the second point is everybody is doing that to show Russia that, like, we are afraid of you, so don't do it.
Yeah.
That's like a trick point. That's what I read. Someone wrote about it, and I thought, maybe it might be like that. But what's important is that with 2 days ago, when Putin signed this contract that Donbass and Lugansk, they are going to be both like under protection of Russia.
Yeah.
Well, basically in Russia,
Sure.
and those countries, they don't exist. This is just nonsense. What just creates, it's like, what the fuck.
It's crazy.
But what's gonna be? I think it happened before. It happened before with Georgia in 2008.
Yep.
They did the same fucking thing.
Yep.
It happened with our western side, whereas Moldova is.
Mhm.
It's called Dniester River, and it's Predniester. I think it's like something like that in English. They have Russian troops there as well.
Right.
So what happens right now is there is Crimea, there is Russian border, there is White Russia, and there is this little part. So basically, we are surrounded by Russia from all the parts.
Yeah.
And what I think, what Putin wants now, he wants to start missile attacks on Ukrainian border
Yeah.
from Donetsk and Lugansk, and he wants us to attack back. And as soon as we attack back,
Yeah.
he's gonna invade his troops.
Right.
That's what happened in Georgia in 2008. We can, like, Georgians, they were staying for a while. He was attacking them, and then one time they were like, "Fuck this, we attack him," and they attacked him, and then they just
Sure.
invaded a part of territory.
He uses that as an excuse to
Exactly.
attack. Yeah. After he's the one
Yeah.
attacking in the beginning.
Yeah.
Um. Well, it doesn't sound very good, but so far, right now, no Russian troops have actually crossed into Ukraine, besides Crimea.
Well, Crimea and Donbass and Lugansk.
They have Russian
So
troops. They have Russian troops in them
so
now.
so, so in 2014, when they grabbed Crimea,
Yeah.
they right away invaded Ukraine,
Okay.
invaded a part of it, a eastern part.
Yeah.
So it's like this. So when the war was going,
Yeah.
so when people were like, "Oh, it's terrorists," it were not terrorists; they were Russians. So they actually invaded it, and then they are like, "Oh, it's different countries, but now we're gonna sign the contract that we are together."
Okay.
But it was just the same country.
Right. Wow.
So they were just continuous. So for 7 years, so it's important to understand that for 7 years there was a war.
Yep.
And it's still going on.
Sure.
With a second wave
Okay.
of invasion.
Right. It's heating back up, and they're expanding their invasion. And it sounds like Russia has a very uh, they have a well thought out strategy of how to do this. They know exactly what they're doing. Their goal is to take over Ukraine and some other countries. So two more questions for you, and then I'll let you go. The first one is, how does the average Ukrainian feel today? And the second one is, what can we as the international community, or just we as like regular people, like what can me and other Americans do to help you guys? So first one, how do you guys feel right now? Like, what's the average Ukrainian feel like?
It's scary actually. Uh, for most of the people, it's scary. There are different beliefs whether they're going to invade or not. Nobody knows what to do.
Yeah.
Everything works as usual, so I wouldn't say there is a lot of panic.
Right.
Like what you can see on the streets, but there is a lot of for sure panic inside.
Yeah.
It's just, it was 2014, 2008 for us. It was all the way. So I think people got used to this unstable situation.
Yeah.
So they are not panicking anymore like that. So when COVID-19 hit us, we were not that panicking that much because I think people lived in stress for a long time. So they got used to it.
Yeah.
But for sure, like when I was seeing Putin, I wasn't alone. When I was with friends, when we saw Putin speaking, and we were like, "Well, what the fuck?" But I saw from people's eyes they were stressed. They were actually, they don't know what to expect from him.
Right. He's
so
crazy.
And what to do? I would say that people should read more about it.
Okay.
That's gonna be the best thing to do because there are a lot of news, and this news they make your mindset how you see the world. So I saw today that Trump said that Putin's.
Sorry, Ostap, you broke up a little bit. Let's see if we get Ostap back here. Uh-oh. Oh no. Ostap, are you there? All right, so yeah, sorry, we had a little technical difficulty. The last thing we heard was you said Trump said something about Putin.
Yeah, so Trump actually he praised Putin for his invasion to Ukraine.
Crazy.
So my thought is, okay, Trump is
a piece of shit.
Yeah, a lot of people think he's stupid, but he has a lot of influence on other people.
Sure.
So 30% now think that Russia is like, I don't know, doing the right thing or whatever. So that's how international community can think. too. They, I think, read more,
Yep.
learn history,
The truth.
and they base that. I think you'll find your own ways how to do things.
Sure.
So how, what sanctions to do, what, where to donate. It's all up to everybody. But minimum, bare minimum, is to read
Yeah. Yeah.
and to get knowledge.
Well, I'm not a huge fan of Joe Biden. I like him better than Trump, but I will say I am very, very glad that Joe Biden is in office right now and not Donald Trump, because I
Oh, for sure.
I
Yeah,
cannot
yeah,
understand why anyone would like Putin. I mean, if you like Putin, you're a fascist, if you ask me. I mean, he's been the president for 20 plus years. Obviously, he's not democratically elected, and
for sure.
only reason Trump likes him is because Trump wants to become a dictator like figure and have unlimited power. And I mean, they're both just. I wish they would. I wish both of them would get in a car and just drive off a cliff, and the
Yeah,
world would be a better place. Um, well, Ostap, thank you so
I wish.
much for your time.
I
Yeah,
have
please.
one more
Yeah,
thing
go
that
ahead. Yeah.
I can tell you.
Yep.
So what I see now, so Ukraine was fighting for its freedom throughout the years, and right
Yep.
now is the time when like things going to get unpredictable. But if if he invades, if Putin invades Ukraine, so I think what's gonna happen is he gets a huge territory full of, I don't know, some people are gonna leave, but there
Yeah.
are gonna be like 20 million people who are going to be against him.
Yeah.
And there is China on the other side. And China's territory is under Russia right now because Russia, when there was China's when China had problems, Russia came and took some part of territory in China. So there is China there.
Yeah.
And when Russia starts to get crashed, some things starting to work not as well as it's well thought,
Yeah.
China is gonna come and play. Well, Japan there as well. Russia has their conflict with Japan. There
Yep.
are some islands there.
The
So
islands.
Japan's I don't think Japan is gonna invade or something, but they still they remember.
Yeah.
So I think Putin lost his chance to invade Ukraine in 2014. That's when he should have done it, but he was afraid to do that
Mm.
time.
Yeah.
And now he's like, okay, I'm gonna do this, but now he's gonna be again afraid. So he lost his chance. Now we know who we are. 2014, no, there was a lot of people who were pro-Russians, a lot of people were pro-Ukrainians,
Sure.
but right now, 7 years passed, a lot of people were raised from 11 years old to 20 years old,
Yeah.
and that's a huge gap. That's a huge educational and mindset gap where people learn who they are, start to speak Ukrainian, and then right now we have a moment when everybody is Ukrainian in Ukraine, not like before.
Good.
So we have this. It's just about time. I hope some sniper is gonna kill Putin, but
Me
I
too.
I, I don't think it's gonna happen.
Me too. I
But
hardly ever wish anyone would die, but Putin is a terrible, terrible person. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if anybody's watching this, any American or whoever it may be, I think you can take away that Ukraine is in a dangerous position.
yeah, for
Russia
sure.
Russia is acting as an aggressor, and they are trying to spin stories and make propaganda to find an excuse to invade. And Ukraine is a sovereign nation that is not
For
part of
sure.
Russia.
One
There,
hundred percent.
it is not a civil war in Ukraine. It has been a process that Russia has been doing for decades, where they have actually
Yeah,
implanted Russian loyalist citizens into Ukraine to make it appear that part of Ukraine wants to be um, Russia, but that is not the case. So Ukraine is its own nation, and the international community needs to, in whatever way possible, support Ukraine in its independence and denounce Russia for what it's doing.
they don't have to, but if 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 Russia still is gonna do what they want to do, well, we will like our progress, our world's progress towards things that the world wants and their needs, they are like far beyond Russia's wants
Yeah.
and needs, and the world won't prosper until all the countries kind of align. So if we
Sure.
won't stop them now, it's
When?
gonna be one more hundreds of years, just this conflicts, this raising nuclear bombs and whatever,
Yeah.
spending too much money on that, not on people who are needing support, etc.
Right.
So it's better to stop now than to wait. And
Sure.
Europe was always waiting, always, all throughout the history. It was always waiting until the First World War started, and then Second World War,
Yeah.
and then so on.
It
So
waited too long. Yeah.
I don't think that it's gonna change now. History doesn't teach people, but I believe that from this video, people's gonna learn and yet read history, and then based on that, they will do the right decisions.
Yeah, I think that the right decision is letting Ukraine decide for itself, what it
Yeah,
wants. So thank you so much, Ostap, for your time.
thank
And
you.
guys out on the internet, please share this video around. This has been a conversation with not some news channel or whatever, but just a regular Ukrainian person who gave us his time, and we appreciate it. Thank you, Ostap.
Thank you.
All right, see you, buddy.